Hey, what's going on? Welcome in. This is the live production of episode 68 of the Client by Client podcast. Great to have you here. Today, I didn't make my little thing, so let's do this real quick. Let's fix this. Yeah, here we go. If this is your first time here, welcome in. We usually start out a little sharper. If it's your first time here, drop me a number 1. If you're a repeat offender, I can't talk. Friend, family member, client, past client, drop me some emojis. Let me know what's good in your world. We're going to record this one, knock it out today on the podcast, over in Apple Podcasts, over in Spotify. Today's episode was all about a quote that absolutely changed my life, how I look at life and how I look at business. And I just share with you and kind of go deep on what it means to me, what lessons I've gathered from it that you might be able to find inside of there and maybe not take as long as I did to hone them and to have them. So be sure to go and check in Apple Podcasts or Spotify to get today's episode. That said, let's hop in and let's bring this to life. Hey, what's up? Jeremy here. Hey, what's up? Jeremy here from whatupjeremy.com, back with another episode of Client by Client. Thank you so much for tuning in. In the last episode of the show, we talked about time-wasting mistakes you must avoid that are costing you clients and revenue and a whole lot of time every single day, every single week, and every single month. And so what I lay out for you is things that you can just completely stop doing. And I also make the case for a few things you might see as super important that you're very focused on right now that aren't going to move the needle in your online business. So it's up to you once you understand the time-wasting mistakes, because I'm not with you. I'm not over your shoulder. With my clients, I'm a little bit tougher on them with these things, and they know how much I drill down these things, and they are aware of what is going to get them closer to where they want to be in life and closer to where they want to be in their business. Once you understand these time-wasting mistakes, you now no longer have the ignorance or naivete to keep doing them. So if you do them in full awareness that it isn't going to move the needle, and admit to yourself and know in your heart of hearts that you are playing business and you are taking action, but there are other skills and actions that you can take that are going to get you way further and that are going to keep you away from playing business and instead getting results from business. So be sure to backtrack one episode once you're done with this one here today so that you can understand the time-wasting mistakes, and so you know what not to do and what to do instead, so that you have warm leads flowing in and clients signing up every single week. In today's episode, let's talk a little bit about your marketing. Let's talk about how we're going to get more prospects attracted into your world. And let's talk about the core of all of this, which is you getting in the heads of your market and of your prospects and what to do to get that intel and how to lead with it so that your marketing attracts in more of the right people and pulls in more of the right clients into your coaching program. If you don't get today's episode right, 2 things happen. The first thing that happens is that you post content every day only to hear crickets. And let's be honest here, whether your content is good or your content is attracting in new clients or not, making any kind of content takes a lot of time. Making mediocre content takes a lot of time, and making good content takes even more time. And so that's frustrating because you're making all of this content, using all of your time, and not having results to show for it. And that's frustrating because you want to have clients signing up, but right now you have a media hobby that isn't really attracting in the right people. The second thing that happens is that you don't have nearly enough conversations or prospects to sign up 3 to 5 clients this month. And that's frustrating because you start to think about ads and paid traffic or other desperate measures to make a quick dollar and to find that next person. And so that means that you get away from your core focuses in your online business. You start implementing and installing all of those new things that might get you some clients down the road, and with the right ad and the right amount of money behind it and probably the right person running it for you. But when all of that happens, you've now taken your foot off of everything you have been trying that may be getting close to working, that may not. But if you're going to do 2 things that aren't going to work for you, I guess it doesn't really matter at that point. But now you can understand what to do so that your marketing is stronger. It pulls in more of the right people, and it's stickier and creates this binge-worthy effect when they come to your Instagram, when they come to your threads, when they come to your YouTube, and they just don't want to leave because they found their coach. Now let's talk about what to do in order to bring this to life. I'll start by saying that your content isn't really hitting home. It isn't pulling on the heartstrings. It isn't breaking through to your market until you start hearing on sales calls or in comments or from DMs from your prospects the comment of, are you spying on me? Are you in my head? Is my phone tapped? Because you've done this so well that the conversation they were just having with their spouse, the conversation they were just having with their business partner, the conversation they were just having in their head, keeping them from falling asleep, was that thing that you just talked about. And so your content isn't hitting home until you start to get comments like that of people saying, are you in my head? And or they get on a sales call and they said, well, you posted this thing and it's the exact situation that I'm dealing with right now. You've heard me in the past talk about this concept of getting in your prospects' minds as pillow talk. The great Dean Jackson shared this with me years ago, and it stuck with me ever since. The kind of content that will break through in your market, that will stand out, and they'll actually get you warm leads that turn into clients, is content that is coming from pillow talk. Pillow talk is the conversations they're having with their spouse, with themselves. They're tossing and turning, keeping themselves up all night, or that they're praying to God, or they're visualizing for the universe to help set straight and to help bring them the right solutions to them and to deliver them from where they're at right now. So I love, and I mention this pillow talk and Dean Jackson so often because this concept can seem like just a concept and not like something that works. But when you do this and you implement it, you will get people saying, are you spying on me? Are you doing all that? And now you've used the pillow talk to effectively break through and to stand out. You do not need everyone in your market to see your face, to hear about the problems that you solve, or to hear your pillow talk. The reality is, when you think about your next client, you only need one person, the right person, to hear that and to take the right action and to take the next step. Maybe that's following, maybe it's watching the next video. Because when this happens, they will binge on the rest of your content. We're not into the tips yet, by the way, team. We'll get there here in a second. Pillow talk is also largely based upon something we've talked about in almost every episode of this show, including the last one, which is pains and problems. In fact, another episode where we really drilled this down was episode 64 in the context of your lead magnet. So I think it's important for me to plug that for you because your organic marketing needs to be pain and problem, pillow talk, in their head focused, but so does your lead magnet. So does the naming of everything that you do. In episode 64, we talked about how the name of your lead magnet, it doesn't really matter nearly as much as talking to the pains and problems, and then better yet, when you understand those pains and problems, slapping that on the front of it and leading with that for the name of your lead magnet, for the name of your coaching program, for the name of whatever you're calling your current offer. So this all comes down to pains and problems. Part of my mission with this show is to simplify the way you look at online coaching. And right now, I know that you know that making content is important. And that is an important realization. I need for you to go further and to get this through to you that really good content that will change the lives of many in the market and stands to change your life and change your business focuses in on pains and problems of one individual. Now, you and I both know that it's not just one individual that has the pains and problems that you can solve. But when your content speaks to one person, when one of those people find it, you are talking to them effectively. And they have just found their next coach. That said, let's talk about 3 ways that you can get inside their head, get this intel, and where you need to go and find it. The first place that you need to go and look for to start creating this effect and get in your prospect's mind starts in the DM. It starts in any messaging that you have going back and forth, because in that moment, you have a real human being across from you. So you've started a bunch of conversations. If you've been listening to this show, or if you're a wise coach, you have a conversational marketing engine that's creating conversations for you every single day. As you start to warm up that human, that prospect on the other side, and you're asking them questions. Some of these might be, where are you at in this world? Others might be something to the effect of, what's your biggest struggle? If you start with what's your biggest struggle with 100% of your prospects, you're not going to get all of that good results. So you can mix and match this as your first message once they've responded to you. Most of the time, you're going to need to say something that's a little bit lower level besides what's your biggest struggle, because they might not trust you enough or even trust that they're talking with the real you and not a team member of yours or an assistant of yours, and you're over here popping these big questions. Oftentimes, I will let someone conversate with me like a coach, and just to see, does this coach know what they're doing, or does their team know what they're doing? And I can gather that in just 3 or 4 messages back and forth. So if you have a queue of messages that you started in the past, maybe some have gone cold, maybe some you're in the middle of, you can totally just re-engage them and propose a question of, by the way, what's your biggest struggle right now? And you could even say something like, I'm gearing up to create some more content here over the next week, and I want to make sure that I'm talking to the pains and problems of the people in my audience. Or you can just say, yo, what's your biggest struggle right now, my man? What's your biggest struggle right now, girl? And in doing that, you're going to get people to respond to it. Now, I'm not saying go and send this as your main thing to go and create leads and to go and get this intel, but messages like this where you're asking them, what's your biggest struggle? Or one of my favorites, right before I'm about to ask a prospect if they're open to some help and then share the details of my offer if they are and invite them to the next step, I will often say 99 times out of 100, what do you need most right now? The question right before that is, how many clients did you get last month and how many are you looking for this month? Then they'll say, I didn't get any clients. They'll say, I got 10. They'll say, I got 2. I would like to get 3 for this month. And then I'll say, okay, got it. That's a good goal, or we can totally fix that. No worries. The next question is, what do you feel like you need most right now? And when they answer that, now you're closer to getting some intel. So you can ask in the DM to your individual prospects, what would you say your number one struggle is? You could post it to your story and also ask that same thing. If you have an email list or a Facebook group, I think this also makes for a good message. You could totally say, first name, I'm gearing up to make some new content. So I'm curious, what's your number one struggle right now? And what's the number one thing that you're focused on working through or bringing to life? Hit me back and let me know. I want to make content that really helps you guys. Or if you are already broadcasting emails out and you know what you're doing, I'm not going to go into what makes a really good email here today, although that might make a good episode for the future. Write your email. And at the end, do a little PS. By the way, hit me back and let me know what your number one struggle is. This works really well when the email that you're writing doesn't have a strong call to action or any call to action. You might be coming off of a launch or recent promotion and you're just not trying to ask things of your audience. There's pros and cons to that mindset and that way of being after a promotion or after a time where you've been emailing a lot, which might make good for give them some value and maybe around pains and problems. And then ask, by the way, what's your number one problem that you're, or struggle or obstacle in your online business right now? Hit reply and let me know. I read and respond to every single one of them. Send that in an email. Over in your Facebook group, you could totally do what's your number one struggle, and then in the comments, let the post sit for an hour or two, and then in the comments, go and use that @everyone tag, assuming that you're using this sparingly. I think this is something worth it. And also, this post isn't enough to get clients from. So if your prospects come to it, they're not going to feel like you're selling them something nearly as much as if you're doing the @everyone tag in your Facebook group and it's to an actual offer or to something that gets them to an offer. Post it in your Facebook group, send it in an email, and ask in the DM. If you have active living paying clients in your program, it would be worth asking that on the next call that you have with them. If you're like me, then you have one call a week where all of your clients come to. In the very beginning of it, instead of saying, what's your biggest win and what's your biggest lesson, say, hey, we're going to switch it up today. We're going to start with a different question. I want to know over in the chat, hands on the keyboard, what would you say is your number one struggle right now? I'm going to put 2 minutes on the clock, throw in your number one struggle. I'm going to read them out, take a sip of coffee. While you're doing that, I'm going to get this thing set up while we're doing that, and we're going to get comfortable, and then we're going to talk about the pains and problems, or we're going to talk about the number one obstacles and struggles that you guys have right now, and I'd come up with a 3-step action plan for each of you for how you're going to overcome that in the next 14 to 21 days. In the DM, in your emails, in your Facebook group, and with your paying clients are all great places to be asking, what's your biggest struggle? Now, a little bit of a caveat that's not in my notes here, but I think it's worth mentioning, is that even though someone says what their biggest struggle is, they might not have the awareness, they might lack the awareness of what their real struggle actually is. When, think about any problems you have in your life or in your business or in relationships. It's a lot easier to spot other people's problems than it is to spot your own because we're so close to it. I'm no different as I say that. And so what your prospects may say, your clients, whoever you're asking this question to, might tell you what their struggle is. It doesn't always necessarily mean that. So just because you get an answer, it doesn't mean that it's the right answer. So you might want to consider probing and going a little bit further with them to understand how that's manifesting for them, how that looks, and also what that's costing them. And now you're going to be able to have a little bit more of a picture for it, or in that conversation back and forth, you're going to have a little bit more intel into what the actual number one struggle is. And then you can go and log that, put it in a spreadsheet, put it in a note where you're logging all of these. And that way you never run out of content ideas as well. There's a bonus tip for you here today. Second, pay attention during sales calls. It is easy in the midst of making content, living your life, doing the gym, doing the sales calls, delivering to clients, having a life outside of business and all that, to not pay attention. It's very easy to end up not paying attention during sales calls, just to like show up and go through the motions and the actions. And you still might end up with a client because you're just good at this and you know what to ask and you know what to say when they say A, B, or C. You know how to respond with X, Y, or Z that's going to help them to have the right thought or to have a thought that's going to get them closer to their goal, all of which should be leaning towards them working with you. And that's going to happen because you're the person helping them to clarify it. You're the authority to them in that moment. But more than paying attention during sales calls, I want you to extrapolate and unpack your sales call process in your script and install some questions that might be better at pulling this out. In the next episode, we're going to talk a little bit more about this. And so I'll cue that up at the end of today's episode. But what this really looks like is thinking about something we've talked about over the last couple episodes, which is the gap, the chasm, the cliff. Your prospects are on one side of a cliff right now, let's say the Grand Canyon, and on the other side of the Grand Canyon is everything they're wanting and dreaming of. But right now, they're in frustration side of the Grand Canyon, and they're in frustration and fear mode. So all day long, they're frustrated, and they're thinking about how scary things can get if they don't do anything about it. Where they want to be is over in want and aspiration land, where their immediate frustrations are cleared, and they feel better about what they're aspiring to. They feel closer to it, even though there's more work to do. They feel like that's never been more of a possibility. And all of this starts in the sales call. This does not start once they're in your program and getting results. This starts when they're on the sales call and when they make that initial investment. Think about the side of the cliff that they are on and what sort of things you might be able to ask them. I ask a couple specific questions because I help businesses, but each of you have different logistical questions that you're going to want to pose to your prospects. Number one, so that you can understand if you can actually help them. And number two, so that you can clarify where it is they're at right now and where do they want to be. Some things that I might ask is, how much time are you spending in your online business? How much money did you make the last calendar month or the last 30 days? How many clients have you signed up? What's the cost of your offer? What social platform is the main driver for you, and what audience size do you have? Or do you have an email list or a Facebook group about how many people are in each? That's the left side. That's where they're at right now on the fear and frustration side of the Grand Canyon. Then I'll say, amazing. A second ago, you mentioned that you have 1,000 people on your email list. Where are you wanting that to be over the next year? A second ago, you said that, okay, got it. So you have 5 clients right now and you really have to get 10. Am I hearing that right? Okay, got it. And last month you made $3,000. You were aiming for about 5, and this month you'd like to make 7. Am I hearing that right? Or am I missing something? So you ask them the questions in relation to where they're at right now. And then you say, when you think about your business a year from now, where is it that you're wanting to be? Let's start with how many clients and what you're making. Let's start with money. And then let's talk about your reach. And then let's talk about your time. And let's talk about freeing up some days. I ask this in the 4th part of my sales call. My sales calls have 9 parts when I'm doing them. And I ask this in the 4th part. And this allows for me to understand where they're at, where they want to be, and can I help them? In doing that, I've just created a gap, because in that moment, we've just brought up the pains and the problems, the things that suck. And then I said, I get where you're at right now. Let's now talk about where you want to be in a year. Now they're talking about the things that are most frustrating, is that are not there right now. And I come from a standpoint of, it's all good. No worries. Let's just dream a little, and let's just let me know where you're aiming. I don't say it like that. But I come off like that to take the pressure off because they've been tossing and turning about this, some for days, weeks, some for months or years before they've reached out to a coach like me. And so you want to clarify that so that you can know the pains and problems, but also so that you can create the gap. Because what's in between where they're at right now and the other side of the Grand Canyon is a non-built bridge that you have the parts for, that you have the goods for, and that you have the blueprint to help them to get across there. And at that point in the sales call, you haven't communicated any of what those things are, what the planks are, what the ropes are, how we're gonna build the bridge, how we're gonna do the middle of it, which is the hardest part, or it's actually the easiest part. The hardest part is actually the beginning and the end of it. You haven't shared with them any of those things. And it's important that even if during that, actually, I'm not going to go into that because that will allude into what we're going to talk about in the next episode. But you need to have somewhere in your sales script where you're specifically asking them where they're at right now and where they want to be. And that's the part of the call that you should be really sitting there and understanding the pains and the problems and where you should be gathering the intel. Thing number 2, you have to start getting more intentional on your sales calls, and you have to start paying closer attention to what your prospects are saying so that you can understand those pains and problems and be writing them down and then reviewing your sales calls and reviewing those notes so that you can go and embed that in your lead magnets and in your organic marketing so that it pulls in more of the right people. Now, if you get on a call with someone and they are totally not the right fit for you and they've shared their problems, maybe those aren't the problems that you lead with. Maybe you didn't like them. It wasn't an energetic match. They didn't have the money. Maybe they signed up to be a client and wound up being a huge hassle. Let's probably not lead with the problems the hassle client did. And let's instead lead with what our really good 5-star clients' problems are so that we can use our educated guesses to be attracting in more of the right people and putting our best foot forward. Third, and building off of getting intentional and paying attention on sales calls, is you have to ask better questions and you have to ask deeper questions. A lot of people will ask me about my tech kit, the lights, the what software, how are you doing that? And it is a question, and it's a question that there are answers to that you could also just like look up on YouTube or that you can go on Google, like anything that's Googleable. If you ask me, you ain't getting an answer out of me unless it's absolutely necessary. It's like, let's not waste time on that thing. Let's better, and what I'll usually say with my clients is I'll usually say, here is the answer, or you can totally search that on YouTube, is literally what I'll say. And then I'll help them to ask better questions as well. Or I'll say, I'm hearing you say this, but what I'm wondering is the question or the answer you're actually looking for, is it this question? And they'll be like, yes, that. Okay, cool. Now let's talk about that thing. So you have to ask better questions and you have to also go deeper. So let's think about the chasm, the Grand Canyon. And you are getting your prospect, they're actually sharing the details. They're like, yeah, I've been coaching for a year. I have a client, or maybe you're talking with a single mom. I began getting overweight about 3 years ago after my second born, and it's only gone more upwards. Okay, got it. What made you realize that you were starting to kind of go up in weight, and what started to make you kind of uncomfortable with the situation? Then you can say, well, the sweatpants stopped fitting. My only pair of pants that were fitting, my comfort pants, those weren't fitting anymore. It's like, gosh, that probably, now you're, as a coach, like, okay, got it. So you kind of go to put the pants on, they don't fit, and it's like, oh crap, now you got to go shopping and deal with all the pain of like buying bigger clothes and all that. Is that right? They're like, yes, totally. Okay, got it. What else? And I know that doesn't sound like the money-making question, but believe it to me, when you get the prospect starting to talk about the pains and problems and you ask that, now you're actually excavating the bones, which are the real pains and problems in the skeleton of what's actually going on. So I'll say things like, tell me more. I'll say, a second ago you said this thing, but then you said this thing right before it or right after, and I noticed your physiology kind of changed. I noticed you got a little bit more excited. I noticed you got a little tinge of disappointment in your voice. Talk to me more about this. Observe them, reflect to them. Say, could you tell me more about this thing? Okay, got it. Okay, I'm loving this. Go deeper on that real quick. You mentioned a second ago that you spend about 5 hours doing lead gen every day. Like, tell me more about that. Like, tell me exactly what you're doing and like how it's ending up. You have to not just allow for the surface level questions to stay on the surface. You got to take those and bring them far deeper by saying, what else? Go on. Tell me more. A second ago, you said this, and I observed this thing. Are we sharing the same observation, or can you talk to me a little bit about that? So ask better questions, go deeper when your prospects give you their answers so that you have the chance to find the actual answer. Because what would really suck is you take this and you go and ask these questions and you ask deeper questions, and then you just leave it at that. You write it down and you go on to the next question. Because in that moment, maybe there was something conscious or subconscious that wasn't brought to the surface that needs to be. And what's worse about that is that will manifest later on into you not doing your job as their coach. And so the more you're able to be the coach that asked the actual question that brought out the real answer in your prospect, now they can't lie to you. Now you were that person they were finally honest with. Now you were that person that brought that thing out of them they didn't even know was there. They may have been considering other coaches. They may have talked to other coaches. They may be considering other options. But in that moment, when you are the person that brought that out of them and they're sharing these intimate details about their pains and problems, you are the authority. And they have just found their next coach, whether signing up in that moment is the right thing for them or a little bit down the road. When you ask better questions, you get better answers, and your prospects will feel clearer just by the questions you're asking. You aren't telling them any step 1, 2, 3, what the actions are, how we're going to do it. Here's the plan. Here's the blueprint. You've just asked questions. And when you've asked the right questions and you've pulled out the right answers, the only next question that you need to ask is, where do you think we should go from here? And when you're doing that and you're taking all of the answers from the DMs, the emails, the Facebook groups, the prospects, the clients, and the sales calls that you're having, now you have the necessary ingredients and component to go out and make content that attracts in more of the right people. You're in one of two boats right now. You're making content and you're making it because you think it's good, or you're making content because you think it's going to pull clients in. And you're either getting clients in from that or you're not. It's binary. And if you're in either one of those buckets, this is the exact episode you need to have on repeat so that you can embed this in your subconscious, find the real problems and obstacles that your clients are dealing with, and make all of your organic content simply about those things and nothing else. And in doing that, you'll have more interactions, which means more conversations. More conversations mean more leads, means more sales calls, and it means more clients. Use that intel to make sticky content, and I promise you, your prospects will binge, and your prospects will reach out when they are ready, and you will be their next coach. In the next episode of Client by Client, I want to share with you the flow of a sales call that gets clients. I alluded to you a second ago that earlier in this episode that I have a 9-step process in my sales framework when I'm doing sales calls. I want to share with you my process and what makes a really good sales script and sales flow. That way you can take it and make your sales script even better and more bulletproof so that when the right prospects are on the phone with you, you have the highest likelihood of walking away from that call with a client, and your client has the highest likelihood of walking away with the exact help they need to get to where they want to be in life. Whenever you are ready, here are 3 ways I can help you grow your online business. First, download your free copy of GetBookedCRM. Coaches, are you still managing your leads and pipeline from Instagram DM, Facebook Messenger, in your email inbox? Well, you're losing leads in the cracks and you're leaving a lot of money on the table every single week and every single month. That's why I created GetBookedCRM. My pipeline tool helps you get leads and turn them into clients in half the time. And at the time of this recording, it's 100% free. Coaches, to get your free copy now, all you have to do is find me on Instagram and send me the letters CRM. Second, join my free group for online coaches. Every month, you're not hitting 10, 15, 30K a month. It's costing you to be in business as an online coach. Over in the Leverage Coach community, I share with you trainings every month and surround you with other coaches who are just a step ahead at the exact same step that you're at, or a small baby step or two behind where you're at right now. And all ships rise in a high tide. Get around me and other quick action takers who every day are following the exact same model and plan to grow our online coaching businesses. To get your free invitation now, all you have to do is find me on Instagram and send me the word group. Lastly, become my next success story. I'm getting a couple coaches together this month to implement my methods for injecting a minimum of 15K worth of new clients or doubling your online client roster over the next 30, 60, 90 days. But working with the right people is super important to me. So this is only for you if you're a relationship-focused coach who always puts the human ahead of the money. you've been coaching for at least 1 year, or you're not brand new to online coaching, you'd like to get 3 to 5 clients organically from social media every single month without wasting money on paid ads, you have at least 300 friends on a social platform, group, or email list, you are willing to take bold action because you know your success depends upon it. And last but most importantly, you can keep a secret. If that's you, I want you to grab your phone right now, tap that Instagram app, and find me at WhatUpJeremy and send me the words case study. When you do that, I'll share with you what we have coming up this month in the Get Clients program, how we're already working with other coaches to crush it with my mindsets and frameworks, like Henry, who got 8K worth of clients in 31 days, or Juan, who's set up for a 60K month in August. And right now it's only July 6th. We'll also identify what part of the program will likely have the biggest impact of your online business the soonest. That way you know what to expect. All you have to do is find me on Instagram at WhatUpJeremy and send me the words case study. That's it for this episode of Client by Client. See you in the next one. Cheers. All right, team. We're going to have some fun in the next episode talking about the sales call stuff. It's going to be a super, super helpful and important one. So if you're here live and watching, circle back tomorrow. Be here for that. And in the meantime, and in between times, go sell something. You'll feel better. And if there's anything that I can do to help, reach out the second that you're unclear, because Universe rewards speed of implementation and organization of your thoughts and of your actions. Only way to get those answers is to reach out for help. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Peace.